Welcome back to the Sip and Feast podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Christmas traditions here and around the world. Tara, give us a little synopsis of today.
So actually, this is in response to a listener who sent us an email, and it was in response to our Seven Fishes episode. They had said that they thought it was very interesting that the Seven Fishes is a tradition amongst Italian American families, and they were curious if we had our own unique family traditions, not necessarily food related, that we could share. So when I read that question, I thought, I think we could turn this into something a little bit bigger and maybe talk about some of the interesting Christmas traditions that take place around the world. And as I was doing so, I learned of a few that might be considered a little bit scary or bizarre or whatever. Some of them I knew already, the scary ones.
One of the scary ones that I always think of, like immediately, is the Krampus.
That's on my list.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that one after.
So we'll get to that. We'll start off by talking about some of those, like you said, around the world Christmas traditions. Then we'll talk about some of the traditions that we do in our own family, and we'll talk about some of the food also, because I mean, this is the Sip and Feast podcast. We can't not talk about food. And speaking of food, Jim, I see you have a little feed bag in front of you. Tell us what you have.
Okay. Well, this does not encompass everything that we've made up until this point. And today is, let me see the date. What is today's date, Tara?
I think it's the 11th. This is the time of year where I feel like I'm in a fog. It's December 11th, but it could just as easily be December 20th.
Yeah, I think people's habits, so we're creatures of habits, but during this time of year, everything kind of takes a back seat to Christmas and the rush of getting gifts, getting worried if you're going to host, whether it's Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, worried about, the family members that are going to complain about the food. And yeah, I think a lot of the normal activity. So maybe you go to the gym every day. Maybe you get that 8 glasses of water in, maybe you eat healthy, but during the holidays, that kind of all goes out the window.
Yeah. And also, speaking from my own experience, I spent 20 plus years working in financial services. I mean, the month of December was a blackout month for us. We weren't even allowed to take off. It's the busiest time of year when you're working, whether it's in financial services or you're working the finance department of any type of company, you're approaching year end.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. A lot of people are stressed this time of year with their jobs.
Yeah.
And now talking about stress and ways to relieve your stress are these cookies here. Now, again, these aren't all the cookies. What do we have here, Tara?
All right, I'm going to go clockwise. All right, we're going to start with Italian almond cookies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Italian or Sicilian.
Yeah, whichever. You've got snickerdoodles. You've got Italian S cookies, which are shaped like the letter S.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And oatmeal raisin pecan cookies.
Yes. So those are 4. These are 4 that we just made recently for the website. These are all on the website. So these are part of them. And then we also have a couple other ones coming up. And then we have all the ones that are already on the site. So we are going to have a little bite or two today. As Tara says, my feed bag. I'm just going to say right away, the best cookie here by a mile is, what is it, Tara?
Well, that's your opinion.
What is it?
Yours is the snickerdoodle. And that's Sammy's favorite too. If I had to pick a favorite on that plate, it would probably be the almond cookies.
The almond cookies. Well, those were a huge hit. A lot of people liked them. Okay, a lot of people are making that recipe. The snickerdoodle, let me tell you, if you never had one before, oh my God. I mean, look, I grew up, I'm 45 years old, and my mother deprived me of a snickerdoodle my whole entire life. And your mother deprived you of a snickerdoodle also, right?
I didn't know what a snickerdoodle was until I was an adult.
Was a snickerdoodle, maybe a snickerdoodle wasn't even around until recently.
I don't know. But what I am going to do, since I have coffee here, I'm grabbing an S cookie because it's, you see how readily it dunks.
Yeah, that's a dunker. That is a dunker, that one. I like your shirt, too. What do you got there? Scrooge and Marley, Financial Services. Love that shirt. That's a nice one. Not as good as my shirt.
So I wore my Scrooge and Marley t-shirt today, and I'll talk about it later, because A Christmas Carol, reading A Christmas Carol, watching A Christmas Carol is one of my favorite Christmas traditions ever since I was a little girl. I think it's fostered my obsession with England. That's kind of maybe where it was rooted in. But we can talk about that more a little bit later.
Yeah, well, I'm
going to eat my cookie while you talk a little bit right now.
You eat your cookie. That's what we're going to be speaking about is the traditions.
The most common tradition for Christmas is gathering around and enjoying a meal with your family. But wanted to take a look at some of the other traditions that might be less known to us here in the U.S., right? And the first one, which I actually did know about, is the pickle in the tree. Have you ever heard of this?
No, I never heard of that one.
Did you ever notice that we have a pickle ornament that goes on our Christmas tree?
No, I didn't notice that either.
Probably not.
No.
You can buy them at Hobby Lobby. I'm sure Target probably sells the pickle in the tree. But this tradition is believed to have started in Germany in the 1500s. And the idea is you would hide the pickle somewhere in the tree, and whichever child finds the pickle gets a special gift. That's kind of a nice tradition. So
sounds a little weird. It is. Go find the pickle.
It is. So, Okay. This is a family show.
Yeah. Like, what's the other tradition? Go find the potato?
Actually, there's a potato one that's up next. But the pickle is interesting. So if you're ever, because I always saw pickle ornaments and I was like, oh, all right, I'm a big fan of pickles. Like, I would buy a pickle ornament, but I never realized that there was actually something more to it. And I bought one, I don't know, a few years ago, and nobody really ever cared to find the pickle, but I would always hide the pickle. Anyway.
It's not as bad as like hiding an egg and not being able to find the egg.
Oh, like a real hard-boiled egg for Easter? That's happened too, where we have found a hard-boiled egg hidden. So the Easter Bunny did a very diligent job of hiding it, and we didn't find the egg for like 3 months later, and it had turned black.
You should have got smart by that point and used the plastic eggs.
Listen, that was back when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, when I was a kid, too. There was no plastic eggs.
We were using real eggs.
Yeah.
All right, next one is something that takes place in the Netherlands. Dutch children leave their shoes by the fire, so Sinterklaas, and that's how they say Santa Claus in Dutch, will fill them with treats. And they'll also sometimes stick carrots in their shoes for Santa's steed. So I think they believe that Santa rides on a steed instead of a bunch of reindeer. And if you happen to be an unlucky kid who winds up with a potato in their shoe instead of a gift, it means you were on Santa's naughty list.
All right. Well, I'm going to put a potato in the kid's shoe this year. Well, actually, they won't even get it. James will just be like, why is there a potato in my shoe?
He'll probably be like, cool, I can make tater tots.
Yeah, no, he won't. He won't get it.
The next one is an Italian tradition of Befana. Befana is a witch. She's a good witch. And she visits children in Italy to fill their stockings with candy and presents if they've been good. And similar to Santa, she will also come down the chimney.
Is this like a common one in Italy all throughout the whole country?
I think so. La Befana is the witch. So I remember Angie, who's my dad's wife. She was born in Italy, came here when she was around 10 years old. She always talked about getting clementines or like small oranges in her stocking at Christmas too. So I don't know if that was just something her family did or if that's something that Italians do. She was from Ciano, is the village where she was, which was near Salerno, which I think is a larger city. So if any of our listeners happen to be from that region of Italy and you observe a similar tradition with the orange,
I think the oranges are more. I think that's like like poverty. You know, like that's the gifts that they got. Now, no coal in Italy.
I didn't. So I'm not an expert. Yeah. I didn't read about coal. I was reading about interesting Italian traditions.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's funny with the clementines because I still always think of that stereotypical image. Remember, like, I guess it wasn't from when we were young, maybe it was when we got into our teens. Remember when they were like just selling the crates of clementines everywhere? And I would
Yeah.
always see, like, in fact, I think her father like used to buy them, but I would always remember people would always buy them, and they were so happy to have that big box of clementines.
Yeah, I for a while was buying them too. They're so
You
good.
were,
I
you
love
were.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They sell them that way anymore? I feel like
I don't see them in the crate.
Yeah.
They sell them in like the mesh bag.
The mesh
now.
bag now. Yeah, times have changed, exactly. Yeah, they're not in the crate anymore.
Yeah, but I love them. I think they're so good. All right, next is, I thought this one was interesting. This is from Ukraine. Christmas trees are decorated with fake spider webs. Okay, and the reason why is this, there was, I guess, a tale of a poor woman who couldn't afford Christmas ornaments. And she went to bed one night after putting up her Christmas tree. And when she came down, the tree was decorated with a whole bunch of silvery, sparkling, beautiful spider webs. So,
Interesting.
they don't obviously use real spider webs to decorate their trees. They're using, like the ornamental ones. I guess maybe the ones that we would use around Halloween time.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. Another one is related to poinsettias, the Christmas flowers. Do you know where poinsettias come from?
What country did they originate from?
Where are they indigenous to?
Oh, I'm going to go with Brazil.
You're close.
Where?
Mexico.
Mexico? Okay.
So a Mexican legend tells of a girl who had nothing but a bunch of weeds to offer the baby Jesus at a Christmas Eve service. When she knelt to place the weeds by the nativity, the bouquet burst into bright red flowers. Ever since then, the flowers, whose leaves are said to be shaped like the Star of Bethlehem, have been known as the Flores de Nochebuena, or flowers of the Holy Night, and became synonymous with Christmas. Please excuse my pronunciation if it is off.
I think that
I only took 5 years of Spanish in high school and did not do well.
I think that pronunciation was really good. I think that you do a great job. Every time I, butcher completely a word, and the most recent language I was butchering was French the last few weeks.
Yes.
But-
You've been butchering that since the 90s when you were in high school.
Yeah, actually, that's true. I've been butchering French for a long time. Italian, I butcher, when I try to do the words. I always like to say, like, I speak New York. That's what I speak. People say, well, what is this? You see in the comments always. They're like, I can't, like, this is a weird language. I'm like, I just sound like everybody from here. But we've spoken about this in the past. People under 40 do not have an accent anymore. It's really weird. Why is that? And now it might not be 40, it might be 35, the cutoff.
Yeah.
Why is that? I don't get it.
It could be because they're exposed more to people from other areas of the world. So it's almost like a globalization of an accent.
Yes. You know what? You're right. So New York in general is made up, especially the hipster areas, they're made up of non-native New Yorkers. So everything that's there, the language doesn't sound like New Yorkers anymore.
Yeah, but I'm not even just talking about that. I'm talking like, you think of these kids, they're watching TikTok, they're watching Instagram, and they're watching influencers from literally all over the world, and they're hearing different voices and different pronunciations of words, and they're listening to the Kardashians and
the mannerisms,
the way they pronounce things, and
they're picking up those mannerisms.
So yeah, I mean again, that's just my hypothesis.
Versus out here, it is very insular and doesn't change. So that's why I sound like everybody I went to school with.
Well, you didn't have that exposure.
Yeah.
Because
there was no influx of people. It was always just the
it was
same.
like your parents and the kids around
Yeah.
you. So I
Yeah.
think my accent changed a little bit when I started working in financial services. When I was in my 20s, I used to talk to financial advisors, and the region I was responsible for was the Southeast. So I used to talk to a lot of folks from Florida, Arkansas, Georgia, South Carolina, and hearing the different accents and having to kind of tweak the way I spoke, I think made my New York accent a little bit more subtle. And then certainly living in Minnesota for a few years, I really had to curtail my accent.
Well, I
consciously had to do it.
I tried too. I just stopped talking when we lived in the state. But
that was a very pleasant 3 years.
I stopped talking.
No, kidding.
Really, I know Tara loved it. Tara's like, we're moving back.
We're moving back.
But no, I really did not speak much. And yeah, if you want to, I guess, become, a newscaster or somebody on TV, you really, I think so you go to college in communications, you really have to lose those accents.
Yeah, I think they want you to have a very neutral accent, almost like it's kind of like a Midwestern accent, but not. But yeah, I mean, you'll hear newscasters and you're like, I can't tell where they're from with the way they speak.
Yeah.
But they don't talk like that in real life. They're putting on their voice.
That's true. That's true. I don't put on a voice. This is just my voice. And my voice isn't bad. I mean, I would say on an accent level of a 10 being the worst New York accent, I would say I'm like a 4, right?
Yeah. There's certainly people that are.
I mean, there's people that are so exaggerated that you think you're watching like a fake show, but it's real.
Right.
But those are dying breed, those people.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it's the exposure to folks from around the world.
All right, enough about the accent. Let's continue with the traditions while I eat this snickerdoodle.
So in Guatemala, there is a ritual that takes place on December 7th. Do you know what December 7th is? December 7th, and I think it's December 8th, commemorates Jesus' mother, Mary. So it's December 7th is considered the eve of the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And people gather in towns and villages across Guatemala for La Quema del Diablo, which means burning of the devil. Since the 17th century, people here have believed that burning an effigy of the devil will cleanse their homes of the evils and misfortunes suffered in the previous year. So that one's like bordering on creepy, but it's got like a positive outcome, not like one of the more darker ones, which I will talk about in a moment. The next one, which is the most enticing or best sounding tradition that like I would love to do, and maybe we should do it in our family, not necessarily on Christmas Eve, maybe even like the day after Christmas, is from Iceland, and I am definitely going to mispronounce this word. I'm going to try. Jólabókaflóð, and it translates to book flood. And on Christmas Eve, you'd exchange books with your family, along with maybe some chocolate, hot cocoa, or even special types of beer. And then after you've exchanged those things, you all just sit around reading your new books and eating chocolate and drinking beer.
This is Iceland?
Yeah.
This sounds amazing. You know what? They know how to live there. Everything is slow with the springs and the hot springs and looking at the beautiful scenery. And now I'm hearing about reading books with each other.
I think Scandinavian countries have this concept nailed down, and there's the Danish word hygge, Hygge. You may have heard of it before. It's basically the word that means coziness, or it's a feeling of coziness, and it's something that these Scandinavian countries kind of live by, especially during the colder months, and they'll fill their homes with candles and lots of textured blankets and slippers, and it's all about being cozy. It's about reading books. It's about playing games while there's a storm raging outside. It's just like the best of winter.
It's such a great idea. And I just started reading a book recently. It's it's a business book, which I guess I don't even know if that counts necessarily, but it's nice to just read books instead of people say, oh, I read a lot each day. So you're on your phone consuming a news article or on the computer. It's not the same.
It's different also, I think, reading on a Kindle or some type of app like that, because when you actually read a book, a physical book, it just, I don't know, it takes on a different feeling, a different vibe.
Yeah, it's just better to do that. And I think maybe even reading some of the classics would be a really good idea.
Well, that is something that I like to do every year around Christmas. And I want to talk about one more tradition, but since we're talking about it right now, I'll bring it up. There are two things that I really, really love to read around Christmas time. And the first is obvious from my Scrooge and Marley t-shirt. It's A Christmas Carol. But I also love to read. It's a very short story. You can read it in, I don't know, 15 minutes, less than that. Do you know what it is? The Gift of the Magi.
Oh, yeah.
Have you read that by O. Henry?
Yeah.
If you haven't read it, I recommend reading it. You could even read it aloud with your family. It's a beautiful story about a couple who are kind of too poor to afford gifts for one another. And I don't want to give away the ending or anything.
Away.
But I recommend reading it. It kind of gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling and is definitely in line with the gift giving and giving of oneself.
So not necessarily along those lines, but another really short book, not quite as short as The Gift of the Magi, is As a Man Thinketh. That's another. These are both very small, tiny little books, and they're really good. A little different.
The last tradition that I want to talk about, which I think is the most bizarre, creepy, whatever you want to call it, is the Krampus, the anti-Santa. So the Krampus is known for wandering the streets in search of badly behaved children. This is so creepy. So in Austria specifically, people will dress up in these like really horrifying masks, and they'll walk around and they'll prank kids and people. And there's even an annual Krampus parade in Vienna. And there's been movies made about this.
There's like 20 movies on it.
There's
a lot of them.
There are. And these, if you look at some of the illustrations too of the Krampus.
Comic books, they're scary.
I mean, they're really scary looking. The Krampus movie that I saw that I liked, that I think is probably worth watching, is, I think it's just called Krampus. It was in 2015. Toni Collette is in it. The guy that plays Todd Packer in The Office, I don't know his name, but he's in it. Who's the other guy? Adam Scott.
Adam Scott from Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, he's in it. And then the kid in the movie is the same kid from the movie Chef, MJ Anthony.
Yes.
And it's a good movie. It's scary. Don't watch it with little kids.
You know what? It is a good movie. And I think we didn't even talk about watching that one again this year. We really should.
Yeah. But we're going to talk about movies in a minute when we talk about our own Christmas traditions.
Yeah,
but I wanted to mention that because that is a movie. It ties in with the Krampus tradition.
I actually saw another Krampus one with William Shatner. That was,
really?
Yeah, it was like rated R. So not as good as the other one that Tara is speaking of. Now, those are two of them. There's like 30 of these movies.
Do you know, I don't even remember. I'm trying to remember the name of the movie we watched last year with James. It was a Finnish movie.
It was bad.
It had like these really scary naked elves.
It was really bad.
I didn't realize how.
But they were humans. They were.
It was like, oh my God, it was like imported goods or exported. What was the name of it?
We've been ripped off so many times, and I know you have also. Netflix is one of the worst perpetrators in this regard. You know, the infinite, I guess, quest for content at a decent price makes them have some good movies and then some of the worst movies you've ever seen in your life, and they're blended in the same section. Like, you'll be like, oh, Legends of the Fall, Braveheart, Shawshank Redemption. Oh, this movie with naked elves. And then like, it just, and you like this, well, it must be good because it's next to these other movies. And I don't know. And you know what's the worst? When you start watching these movies, and we do this often, and you probably do it with your family. You get invested, you're like 30 minutes in, you're 40 minutes in. Well, then at that point, you can't
watch it.
You gotta finish it.
Yeah.
There was a movie recently that we just saw, and I love Jordan Peele. I think he's hysterical in Key and Peele, and you know, he's obviously extremely talented. He did the Al Pacino show. that one. He did.
Get Out was good.
Yeah, Get Out. He did the remake of the Twilight Zone, but the one that was really not good was, what was the name of it?
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
I was disappointed because I love
the movie
him.
was a big nope for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me, it was everyone.
I love Jordan Peele. I do enjoy impersonating his many characters.
If you haven't seen Key and Peele, there are some of the funniest individual skits you will ever see. My number one is what, Tara?
Substitute teacher?
No, not everybody's number one. Everybody's number one is a substitute teacher.
You like the one from like where they're aerobics guys from the 80s.
The 80s aerobics instructor. If you haven't seen that one, just go on YouTube, type it in. You will die laughing. Yeah, another really good one by them. It's a dark one. This is actually where you could see Jordan Peele kind of like went off the rails, and this is when he was getting the idea to make all these horror movies. It was the Family Matters episode.
Oh, that one. Yeah. And then also Flicker.
Flicker,
where
too.
He like flicks the guys. My favorite is any of the Megan ones where he plays Megan and then Keegan Key plays Megan's boyfriend, Andre. And that's just so funny. And then the other one is The Eternal From Within.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
they were making all this stuff.
Let's not talk about that here, but you can
stuff
you
when
can watch
Saturday
that
Night Live was absolutely horrendous for all these years. There's all this other stuff going on around it.
They're the best. All right, so let's move into talking about our own traditions. And I mean, some of them are really basic. Like, we'll always bake cookies.
Yes.
Right? In the weeks leading up to Christmas, and then we'll give them away, sometimes to family members, sometimes to neighbors.
Quick thing about the cookies. People were asking, I gather you probably want to know, how early can people make them? It's tough to make. This is the thing.
Yeah.
You get a problem. Like, you can't make 12 different cookies 3 days before Christmas.
There are some cookies that freeze really well that maybe you'd want to consider making 2 weeks before and freezing them. Like, I know the oatmeal raisin cookies freeze well. The S cookies freeze well. Chocolate chip cookies will freeze well.
I heard pretty much every cookie does, and you can just let them defrost and then warm them up.
Yep. So, but I think a good rule is like, we're going to bake our Christmas cookies this coming weekend. So it will be 1 week before Christmas. And then, sometimes, when the kids were littler, they would bring them to school and give to their teachers.
I want to just say this, and again, this is not legal advice or anything like that, but I will tell you simply, on our website, we put 3 days for meat. Okay, that means if you're cooking like a dinner recipe, say leftovers can be refrigerated for up to 3 days and eaten. That's what we put because that's what the USDA says. We don't want to be sued for it. That's what we put. Okay, for cookies, we put, I think, 5 days or 7 days.
5 to 7 days usually for cookies.
Look, the honest truth is just use your judgment. Obviously, don't put a pot roast in the fridge for a month and then eat it, and you'll be in the ER. But if it goes past 3 days, again, that's what we put there for legal reasons on our website.
So baking cookies is one of the traditions that we've been doing for years and years and years now. Another one is one of my favorites. We like to drive around and look at Christmas lights. This
is one of the best traditions that we have. I don't know if you do this. If you don't, if you never did it, I recommend you do. It's a great time. Get like a hot cocoa, or a coffee.
Yep.
With one of these insulated mugs that I have here, and just go pick a good neighborhood. Around where we live, the really, really expensive neighborhoods don't have any lights, right, Tara? You notice that?
Yeah, but they're more private. There is a neighborhood which is still, I would consider it to be an expensive neighborhood, but it's funny because we were driving around there the other night, and James was like, what do you think the cutoff date is for this neighborhood to get decorated? Like, he was like implying that there's some coordinator that everybody
there is
has to have their houses decorated by a certain day, by a certain company. This is a neighborhood that's in St. James.
That's
and
that's like a new money neighborhood.
yeah,
So the houses
yeah.
there are expensive. The taxes are very expensive. Like all these homes have taxes over $30,000, but they're newer construction. So it's probably younger people who own them. And they probably one professional light company knocked on the door and they're like, hey, I'm doing Bob's down the street there. You know, you want to be as good as Bob? You know, Bob's going to outdo you. Your wife might say something to you. So like you're like, oh, fine, I'll do it. You know, how much is it? They're like $1,800, you know, and then the whole entire neighborhood, the whole neighborhood had it.
Yeah, I think they probably feel a lot of pressure to compete.
Those houses are on like, I guess like a half an acre, maybe 3/4. They're kind of close.
They are close.
Then we have this area on the north shore of Long Island called Oldfield. And then there's other areas like Nessaquag. You drive around these areas, a lot of these homes are on 3, 4, 6 acres. And they're dark.
Well, a
and
lot
there's
of them
no
are,
lights.
Yeah, they're set far back too.
Yeah.
Like you're not necessarily driving there to look at lights. I think some of the areas with the best lights are the like medium income areas. They go all out. In fact, where I grew up and the house is there, but the family who did the decorations, they're not there anymore. I grew up in Farmingdale. It was a house that was behind the 7-Eleven that was on Route 109, like right near Secatog Avenue. If anybody's listening knows where this house is. They did the most elaborate decorations in this house. They had the whole garage converted into Santa's workshop. There were all these like animatronic things going off. I remember for me, we would walk to that house, me and my dad, and I guess my mom and my sister, but I always remember it being my dad and I. We would first go to 7-Eleven, get hot chocolate, and then we would go there and look at the lights. And I think that's why I love driving around looking at lights so much, because that was something that I've been doing since I was really, really little.
So the house you're talking about, and I had houses like that in the neighborhood I grew up in, or towns over, they were probably done by, it was probably like a contractor or electrician who owned the house.
Oh, yeah,
And,
yeah.
You know, that's what I'm saying. And they did it, they DIY'd the whole thing.
Probably.
They're like Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation.
This house, I'm telling you, was incredible. There were snowmen, like lit up snowmen going along the whole roof. Anyway, that's driving around looking at lights. I would say, yes, you said get some hot chocolate or coffee or tea or whatever it is that you drink when you're going to do it. Also, it's fun to wear your Christmas pajamas.
Yes.
Or to dress in something really cozy if you're going to do it.
The biggest problem, I don't know if this is if you're experiencing this, but people have lost their mind on the road. Here in Long Island, people are just, they're maniacs on the road. And not all of them. That's what makes it even worse. But you got to be careful when you're doing this.
Of course.
You got, you're trying to drive, you're trying to look at the lights.
Yeah, I mean, your warm beverage shouldn't be, mulled wine. I mean, it's
no,
like,
I don't even mean that.
I know. I'm just saying, like, of course, that goes without saying. If you're going to drive, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other tradition that we have is Sam, our daughter, loves to set up a hot cocoa bar.
Oh, yes.
Every year in our kitchen. So she did it again this year.
Yeah.
And she's got like candy canes and marshmallows.
I'm gonna show that cocoa bar. I'm gonna do for the Patreon listeners, we're gonna do a little Patreon special, and I'll show that area and also a couple other things.
So that's a lot of fun. It just kind of gives like a cozy feeling to the house. And ours is on just like a little tiny, it's not a big bar, it's a little tiny, what would you even call it? It's where our coffee maker is. It's right next to that. So it's just a tiny little station set up, but it gives the kitchen and the house in general kind of that cozy feeling.
It's a little table. I bought it from that table from Home Depot for about $150. It's a very, very small, what's it called? Like a kitchen cart or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a movable island.
Yeah.
Okay, another tradition that my dad and his brothers do. I don't even know if you're aware of this. The regift Santa. Do you know this?
No.
Okay. Every year, Santa comes on Christmas Eve to our house, right? In the flesh. Often it's my dad or one of his. Well,
yeah.
in the past, it was one of my dad's brothers, like one of my uncles, or my dad dressing up, and that torch has kind of been passed. In fact, James asked if he could dress up as Santa.
I'm probably gonna have to do it.
Yeah. So somebody will dress
God
up
knows
like
my belly is. I don't have to stuff anything in my belly.
Yeah, you've been working on that Santa costume all year. So somebody will dress up like Santa, and Santa will actually hand out the gifts that we'll give each other. But one of the things that my dad and his brothers like to do is they like to re-gift really bad gifts. So you might wind up with a CD maybe, or by like
A VHS
I'm trying to think
player.
of like a really bad movie,
like a Sony Discman.
maybe, but it would be like, I don't know, like a CD by like Milli Vanilli. Not that I'm just trying to like not
You're
to knock,
allowed to say Milli Vanilli's
not to knock
bad.
Milli Vanilli, but like I'm trying to come up with like
You're
like
allowed
a bad
to say
gift, and the gift comes from the regift Santa. So they like that's a funny thing that they like to do.
You know, Milli Vanilli never sung any of those songs, right?
No, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jim, another tradition, and I'm sure most families out there have these traditions that we do. I don't think we're unique at all. But the other thing we do is pretty much the whole month leading up to Christmas, we'll try and watch some of our favorite Christmas movies. Some of them are debatable on whether or not they are a Christmas movie. So some of the ones that are, I think, without question are Home Alone, Home Alone 2, Christmas Vacation, Scrooged.
Yep.
Right?
Spirited, you can add in there now.
Yes, I did. That's one of our new favorites, Spirited. Which
It's
is
okay. It's not a favorite. It's okay.
Yeah, it's a twist on. It's a musical twist on A Christmas
It's
Carol.
a Ryan Reynolds movie.
Yeah.
Which I don't know about you, but I think I've had a little too much Ryan Reynolds. You know, like he's everywhere. You know, it's. I heard the other day. You know how much he's worth? Take a wild guess. His net worth.
100 million. 250 million. 500.
400 million.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I mean he's funny.
It's probably most of his money was probably made from the Deadpool character. That's
probably,
what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite Christmas movies, obviously, is A Christmas Carol. Specifically the movie that I like is the George C. Scott version. I also happen to like the Albert Finney version, which is just called Scrooge, I think. But those are the two that I grew up watching.
Did you include Elf in your list?
No, because I'm not a big fan of Elf.
All right, but
and that's not one that we're talking about our traditions.
Yeah,
we don't always watch Elf
so
because Sammy doesn't like it.
I do like Elf. The problem is the women in my family don't like Will Ferrell for some reason. And like, that's the thing. Like, one of the funniest movies is Talladega Nights. And they won't watch that one with me. But yeah, I digress. I think we're missing a couple that aren't on your list that should be on your list.
I want to talk about some controversial Christmas movies.
Okay.
One that I'm going to mention, and it's one that my dad told me a few years ago. You have to watch this. Watch it with Sammy. You'll love it. And the movie is Love Actually. He's like, it's a great Christmas movie. So I sit down to watch it with Sammy. And if those of you have seen it, you'll know that one of maybe the first or second scenes is a really, really inappropriate adult scene. So I had to right away stop it. And I was like, oh, Sam, no, we can't watch this anymore. Anyway, so I don't know. I have not finished watching it. But to me, when I think of like Christmas movies, I think of movies that are family friendly. And that's why I think the next movie we're going to talk about might not be a Christmas movie, even though I think most people, at least in our generation, Gen X, we think this is a Christmas movie. And that is
Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Die Hard is 100% a Christmas movie. And I'll just say, I just watched Die Hard last year with James, and he's not old. And, I told him, James, be prepared. He loved it. And I will just say that Die Hard is way less violent and all that stuff compared to the other crazy movie we just watched. What was the name of that one?
Violent Night.
Yeah, with Hopper from Stranger Things.
Yeah, David Harbour.
David Harbour.
Who is actually from, do you know he's from White Plains?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, as somebody without an accent,
Yeah.
But he plays a Nordic Santa, who you can't remember why, but anyway, he's Santa. He has magic powers. And John Leguizamo and a whole crew of like terrorists, they try to break into this house that supposedly has like $100 million in it. So Santa, David Harbour, proceeds to kill about 100 people with his hammer, like his Thor hammer. And let me tell you, it's way more violent than Die Hard was. Entertaining, comedy. So I guess the violence, because it's comedic, it's done well. And they actually, I was reading the director, he said that it is an homage to Die Hard. And,
for sure.
And they also had a couple scenes from Home Alone.
Yes. They did include some of the Home Alone things. The little girl in the movie, she tried some of the tricks that Kevin did, except hers was
more violent.
A little bit more violent.
But it was entertaining. We watched that one with the kids, and
he's like kicking ass while they're playing in the background the Bryan Adams Something About Christmas Time movie.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it's nowhere near
I liked
as good.
it.
I mean, nowhere near as good as Die Hard. Die Hard is a classic.
Well, why do I like it?
You like David Harbour?
I have a little crush
on David Harbour.
I do.
Yeah,
the kids know
you
too.
Know what?
The kids get so mad at me when I say that I have a crush on David Harbour, or like they think I'm like doing something nefarious.
I know, they get mad. Well, you should watch Black Widow, the Marvel movie, because he's in one of those superhero suits.
Yeah, I heard he has like
he plays like a Russian,
a dad bod in that. Well, he has a dad bod in like everything except for maybe season 1 of Stranger Things.
Look, every dad has a dad bod, and I don't know if he has kids or not, but like you're not supposed to be in your 40s or 50s with 8% body fat.
So let's talk about some of our food traditions for Christmas Day specifically. We already talked about Christmas Eve and the 7 fishes and all that stuff. So I want to really focus on Christmas Day and what are some of the things that we do every year as a meal.
So Christmas Day, it's always a rib roast. Doesn't have to be. We actually were debating this year possibly doing a Chateaubriand, but it's typically beef for us. Now you want to change that, right? You want a goose.
So one of my dreams is to one year do a traditional English, like straight out of a Dickens novel, Christmas dinner with a goose and the Christmas pudding, which I understand takes several days. I know we have a few listeners in the UK. If you have any like tried and true Christmas pudding recipes and tips and tricks that you would like to send my way, I would love to hear from you. But that's my dream one year, is to have a traditional English Christmas dinner. I do really love on Christmas Day, like I like listening to Christmas music on the radio, like pop Christmas music leading up to Christmas Eve. And then for some reason on Christmas Day, I really like this one particular album. It's called Irish Country Christmas. And it's just all instrumental music, and it just makes me feel so happy.
Irish Country Christmas.
Yeah. I think the guy's name is Craig Duncan. I don't know, but there's like guitars and I don't know. He's got some traditional Irish and English instrumental music on there.
That's easy to include. I don't know about the goose though. Where am I going to get a goose?
Outside.
Yeah, I know. We have a lake by us with a couple of them.
No, I wouldn't say to
those
do that.
Those are tremendous. Is that those are goose, right? That's what they are?
Well, they're swans too.
Oh, no, those are swans. Yeah, no, I was like, those things are huge.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Geese are on the road always. Yeah.
No,
geese are always on like the soccer fields.
Oh my God, they're so cute. Never mind. I don't think I want to eat one of them.
Well, it's the same thing with a duck. We always see the duck we see a bunch of ducks at the lake along with the swans. There's like 2 swans like control that lake. They're like the enforcers there. And they must be about 10 times the size of a duck.
Yeah, they're huge.
But the ducks are so cute. You know, they're like going like duck, bill down, like their butts are sticking up in the air. They're trying to like find whatever they're trying to find on the bottom of the water. And yeah, it just makes you not want to have one.
Yeah.
Though duck is pretty good. Long Island duck specifically.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jim, any other traditions you want to talk about?
By the time you listen to this or watch this, the rib roast will have been published on Thursday, so only a few days earlier. If you need help making a rib roast, if you don't know how to do it, definitely watch the video. I showed how to tie it, showed how to do like a slip knot. I showed how to remove the bone, because you might run into a situation where if you buy it from Costco, they're not going to do that for you. So you'll have to do it yourself. It's not a big deal. We actually had somebody ask a question about, what was the specific question that they asked about the bone?
It was about the chine bone.
The chine, which is the backbone.
Yeah, but it's not something that's really a problem here in the U.S. when you buy it, unless you're getting like an entire cow.
Yeah,
and you have
I want to address that for a second.
Yeah,
with people.
Go ahead.
So yeah, that's how it's connected. And so the ribs, and then you'll be connected to this chine or backbone. You're never going to see that. You're never going to. So I don't know if the person was in the UK or what, or if they were in the middle of America and they were buying a full steer. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but that's not something that's going to be a problem for you. So with a regular boning knife or just a regular chef's knife, you can easily remove the bone, how I did in the video, and then you tie it back up. This makes it easier. By having it on the bone, it'll be a little juicier. And then when it comes time to, after you roast it, to carve it, as simple as removing that string, and then you have your full rib roast without the bone, so you can cut nice slices. Mm-hmm. Chateaubriand, even easier to make if you want to just do that.
The Yorkshire pudding is also really good too. We don't have a recipe up for that, but what is that? Flour, egg, and then
you make it a cold batter.
Yeah.
A lot of times there'll be eggs in it. There'll be milk in it. You stick the batter in the fridge. Some people will even stick it in the freezer. After you do your roast with the drippings, the hot drippings, you pour your batter in there, and it'll rapidly expand when it's in the oven. You can do individuals in a muffin tin, so each person gets their own little Yorkshire pudding. Or you can use, say you do your roast in a big cast iron. No need to drain now. You just pull your roast out, pour your batter into the cast iron, put it in the oven, and you have this massive Yorkshire pudding. But the way that we did the roast in the video, there's not really any drippings, because it's a low and slow, and then you searing at the end. That's the one downside to it.
Okay, so that's really all I have for our traditions, and we'd really love to hear from you on your favorite Christmas or other holiday type of traditions that take place during this time of the year. Send us an email to podcast@sipandfeast.com. And as always, send us questions too.
Yeah, send us your questions, and we'll be back next week with a whole new episode. And we might actually be taking off from the YouTube cooking videos for a couple weeks. We're not sure yet. Right, Tara?
That's right. We feel like we filmed
maybe a lot.
Like a little bit of a break.
We probably have
around
6
the holidays.
videos filmed already that have not been published.
Yeah,
so.
we just want to spend some time with our family and really enjoy this time of the year. And we encourage all of you to do the same.
We do. We'll see you next time.